Okay, welcome back to the next part in the little series of sort of blogs about hints and tips for fishing fishing, things that I see or agree with or don't disagree with, and the things I notice on the bank, and trying to put them all together to help with your next trip to France or your next trip fishing. One of the things I see a lot, and this is relevant to probably virtually every lake in France now, especially after Brexit, with bait. So we design and make our own bait. It's a separate company, but obviously it's the bait that we supply here at the lakes. Designed for, but it doesn't matter. It's quality bait, as best a quality bait we could possibly make, and would compete with quality on any bait you're likely to show me. So there are probably, I don't know, 70% plus of fisheries in France now probably provide bait of some description. Some of it absolutely dreadful from what I've seen, some of it really good quality, but the sort of the basic premise is that 9 times out of 10 you'll get, like in our bait package, boilie, some particles, some pellet, maybe some hook baits, or some oil or liquids and things like that. So what they see on a weekly basis, the carp, is almost identical every week. Yes, some people might crush a few, some people might do this, some people might do that, but in reality, especially from what I see, they see round boilies. They're either 16 or 20 mil, or around that 18, 15 mil, that most people provide. And as a result, people just think because it's the house bait, I'll just chuck it in and we'll catch fish. Obviously I've used our bait, or my bait, for quite a few years now, but there's still a few things that I always do to it to improve my chances. So I'm going fishing tomorrow, so we'll jump in time to the next part of the video, how I apply it and what it looks like and everything. But I just wanted to start the video now with how I'm going to prep it. So 5 kilo bag of 18 millers. Yes, of course you can chuck them in and they will catch fish anywhere you take them. Good quality bait is good quality bait, but carp are used to seeing the same thing over and over again, especially on a private water like Solace, like I'm going to fish tomorrow. And as a result, I like to do a few things to improve my chances, like I say. So start with my bag of bait. I've got the new squid syrup, half a bottle left, and some Himalayan rock salt, and obviously a bucket, and in the bucket I've probably got 4 inches of lake water. The reason I start with the lake water is to ensure that one, from biosecurity point of view, there's nothing alien going into the water. It's a special smelling bait. It's a new test bait, this one, so you don't quite recognise it, that's why, but you will see it next year. Be nice if you had smell-o-vision. But so yeah, 4 inches of water in the bottom, and the reason for that is just to start the to open the pores a little bit as they submerge in water, or just get a light coating in water. I don't want them all to be underwater. I don't want to turn them into mush. I just want to start the process of opening up the bait. You could do it with hot water, but I prefer to do it with lake water that's so it isn't quite as fast. I don't want to mulch it up, me personally, but if you want to do that and you want it a few kilo real soft, then stick it boiling hot water over it. I wouldn't ever go quite boiling, because I don't want to scald the ingredients, but I'd have it as warm, probably 70-80 degrees, and that will make the process a bit quicker. So I took this bag out yesterday. A lot of people take a bag out the freezer, or when you get here, and straight in an air dry bag, things like that, or straight in a bucket. I like to keep mine in the bag. Main reason is, long story short, freezing a bait basically dehydrates it. Freezing dehydrates, which is why you often get the crystals and the freezer dust in the bag. That is a lot of the ingredients and solubility of the bait has been sucked out, and the moisture has been sucked out, and the bait needs the moisture in order, one, to be appetizing, and two, to encourage the ingredients within the bait to make sure you're not starting from a marble that then sucks in everything around it. You know, silt or whatever, if you pile it in a load of weed, it will suck in all of that fragrance, and it will affect the bait. Maybe not negatively, but from my point of view, I'd rather the bait stayed as I want it, as it came out of the bag. So I took it out of the freezer yesterday, left it in the bag, in the shade, and I just turned it over every time I walked past it, 5-6 times, just to make sure that all of that moisture that had come out of it in the freezing process had been reabsorbed back into the bait as evenly as I can do it. So everything that was in the bait is back in it, and then I'm going to take the whole bag and tip it in the bucket with the water. So I've got literally a bucket of boilie. We don't need to see too much more on that. What I do is I'll just give them all a liberal sort of turn around within the water, make sure that every bait is wet. So as you can see, they've darkened slightly. Not much change will happen in a split second, but I just want everything wet. And what I'll do is I'll keep doing that. And once the lid's on the bucket, every time I walk past it, I'll give it another turn over. So that's my starting point. Lake water, boilie's all in the thing, soaking up, starting to soften up, starting to start the process of absorption, which allows the attractiveness of the bait to come out. So give all our glugs a good shake, because there are powdered ingredients in them as well, appetite stimulators and aminos, etc. God, Jesus. For all you old school carp anglers, the original squid type baits that you smelt all those years ago, this will bring back. It's got that real pepperiness. It took us a long time to get this. So that's there's probably 200 ml in there. It's a 500 ml bottle, so there's just under halfway. So it's probably, say, 200 ml. I'm probably going to put 150 ml in. I don't want it, so I've got a little bit more. I've got that much left. I don't need to absolutely cake it. I'm not putting anything synthetic on, no flavours, oils, dyes, crap like that. So I can't actually overdo our syrups because they're all natural. There's nothing that's gonna chemically scare off a fish, if you know what I mean. So this is where you get smelly and dirty. You can use obviously a scoop or whatever, but I'll just put my hands in. And now obviously I'm mixing that squid syrup, that king squid syrup, with the lake water, making the lake water even more sort of attractive. So as this bait opens up and becomes more porous, it will take in the lake water and that small amount of king squid syrup, which just gives it that slightly stronger signal, but natural, to compared with the majority of bait they see. So that's the first or the second part. Hands smell absolutely rotten, and for me, it doesn't matter what time of year it is. Everyone talks about salt, especially in spring, which is true. If they were going to look for salt at any time of year, it will be in the spring, mainly because as they've come out of winter, they're at their weakest point with regards to sort of health. They might well have lice or argillus, stuff like that on them where they've been holding up, especially in weedy waters. And the salt from that point of view has a real antibacterial property. On top of that, which is why I use it all year round. So I've got, how much is it? So it's 2¼ kilo in there. I'm going to probably put maybe half a kilo of salt in the bucket. Real fine salt. I don't think there's any need at this point. So not a huge amount, but plenty. A little bit more. Yeah. So I've used that much. I don't think there's any need or benefit at this point of putting big lumps of Himalayan rock salt in, unless you're going to be able to prepare it weeks in advance and allow that to break down. Obviously, the finer it is, the higher the surface area of it, or the greater the surface area, quicker it will dilute and break down in the water. So that's one of the main reasons I've got the lake water in as well. So I'm going to mix that all in. Yeah, because going back, obviously, if any of you remember your biology classes, I know I don't, but obviously I've read into it more recently. fish are constantly fighting the lack of salt or their need for salt. So obviously the water they're in, 99 times out of 100, unless you're fishing brackish water or tidal estuaries and stuff, 99% of the time the water they're in is absolutely no salt content whatsoever. And obviously the fish is full of salt. Its vital organs are made up of a huge percentage of salt, and as a result, due to osmosis, the water is constantly trying to draw that salt out of the fish, and the fish is constantly trying to replace it. So all of the baits that have got fish meal in, especially fish hydro liquids, krill liquids and stuff like that, are naturally very high in salt, which is one of the main reasons they're attractive. In my opinion, there'll be people that disagree with this, but I think it's, once you read into it, I think it's pretty hard to come up with a decent argument as to what I'm saying. So yeah, they're constantly fighting to replenish the salt that they're losing naturally through osmosis in the non-salt environment that they live in. So salty things, snails, all sorts, carry salts and electrolytes, and that's why, you know, if they can eat them, they will. So because I've got this 4 or 5 inches of water in, and I've got this little bit of squid extract, this king squid syrup, which is really high in salt anyway because of, you know, because of its makeup, and then adding some salt, as this water opens the pores in the bait is then going to absorb this water, which is why I've only put sort of 3-4 inches in, because by the time I fish tomorrow, these 18 millers will probably be 20 millers, and there probably wouldn't be any water left in it. They'll have absorbed it all. That means that when it goes out in the water, the process of the bait working, starting to produce its attraction and giving off its attractors, especially its water soluble attractors, which is the signal that the fish are, they're not smelling it, but in our terms they're smelling it, they sense it through their lateral line and then there. But it's this, it's those water soluble ingredients that are key. So when you see people, it always kills me when I see people cover their bait in water for a couple of days and then pour all the water away. That is 90% of the soluble ingredients probably within that bait. All this time and energy and research and development's gone into creating a quality boilie, and you're pouring away a huge amount of the attraction. If your bait is better once it's basically been diluted like that, it's probably too strong in the first place. But that's another point altogether. You know, the chemical signal coming off of it is probably too strong in the first place. In our bait, we've only got very light. In one of the baits in the sea monster, there is no chemical flavour. It's all made up with liquid food. And in the other 2 baits, you've got literally a tiny amount of plum in king squid, and you've got a tiny amount of Scopex in the Pro Liver GLM. So this new test bait also doesn't have any chemical flavours in it. It's obviously lightening up as it's absorbing the water, and as I say, I'll just keep that going now, keep that moving, not by hand. I'll stick the lid on, I'll just give it a shake every couple of hours as I walk past. It'll be in the back of the van for the next 15 hours getting knocked about. I'll turn it upside down, etc, etc, and tomorrow when we are ready to fish, I'll show you the difference. The colour will be a little bit more washed out, which I think on waters like this, tricky waters, is a massive bonus. The bait will be a little bit softer and more digestible, and it will absorb the water. It won't absorb anything when it goes in the lake, and it will be ready to start kicking out its attraction. So that is the starting process of the bait, of my preparation. And then what I'll do tomorrow is I'll talk about, when I'm on the bank, I'll talk about, you'll see sort of, it's quite a stiff bait because of the makeup of it. This will be a lot less stiff tomorrow. I mean, they're a little bit rubbery almost, this new one, which I haven't really got a name for yet. You'll see that they're a lot softer, and I'll take probably a handful out, which I'll put in a separate pot now, and I'll just cover them in salt. They've got the stickiness of being moist. I'll cover them in salt. They'll go back in the bag, and they'll be my hook baits, because obviously I don't want them super soft to start with. I actually want to dehydrate them slightly with the salt, so that I've got some harder hook baits. You can obviously buy harder hook baits, but I like to use them as close to out the bag as I can. And then yeah, I'll use any fluid that's left over because it's so attractive. If there is any fluid left over, that will have water soluble ingredients in it from the bait, so I don't want to pour any of that away. What I'll do is I'll use that on my pellet to mush up a bit of pellet, but we will come back to that tomorrow and have a look.